She didn't ignore you because you were bad. She ignored you because you tried. Because your effort, in her mind, was the biggest sign that you weren't worth that much. And that hurts. It hurts because it seems unfair. You paid attention, you were polite, you showed interest, you tried to show value, and she simply walked away. Meanwhile, the other guy, the one who seemed distracted, almost disinterested, was the one who got the kiss. This isn't just frustrating, it's a breakdown in the logic you were trained to believe. You grew up thinking that dedication would be rewarded, but in the game of attraction, the more you try, the more you scream, "I'm not enough on my own." And when a woman feels this, she shuts down emotionally. Because seduction isn't a logic of merit, it's a dance of invisible perceptions. The contradiction here is brutal. The man who tries less wins more. And it's not because he's better. It's because he conveys, without saying a word, that the world already validates him. He presents himself as someone whose energy doesn't need to be sold, just felt. This is what Robert Greene calls quiet charisma. It's not force that imposes, it's magnetism that attracts. And you know what else? It's a psychological trap as old as human desire itself. See, when you show up to a woman with a taster attitude, trying to validate your value, show off your achievements, make her laugh all the time, seem interesting in every answer, all of this, no matter how charming it may seem, is effort. And the effort communicates something that her brain translates as, "He's trying to convince me." And the person who needs to convince, deep down, is begging for acceptance. This triggers a primitive trigger in the female brain, emotional insecurity. The Forbidden Manual translates this phenomenon into a powerful archetype, the detached. He's not cold, he's not arrogant. He just doesn't care about controlling the outcome. And that's when the tables are turned. Because the man who doesn't try is the man who seems to already have it, and everything that is already desired becomes even more valuable. It's the paradox of scarcity. The less you give, the more she wants to discover what's behind it. And that's why the detached man wins. He doesn't fight, he orbits, and that creates a delicious tension. But let's go deeper. Friedrich Nietzsche said that happiness is the feeling that power grows. And in seduction, what is power if not the control of the other person's reactions? The detached man grows because he doesn't seek control. He lets the woman project onto him what she wants to see. He doesn't show his cards, and that's exactly the opposite of what the traditional alpha does. The so-called alpha male, in practice, is just a controller disguised as a leader. He wants to decide everything. He wants to guide, dominate, predict. But real seduction doesn't happen in domination. It happens in involuntary surrender, in the enigma, in the discomfort of not having total control. The nonchalant man is the one who is in no hurry, who neither validates nor denies, who doesn't run but doesn't stand still. He just flows. And this fluidity is like water. It shapes the environment without fighting against it. While the alpha projects strength to assert himself, the nonchalant lets the environment speak for him. He doesn't fight for space, he occupies it without having to ask. This affects the female mind because it puts her in the position of seeker. She starts asking internal questions. Why doesn't he chase me? Did he find me ordinary? Is he with someone else? And that's when she starts to invest, to chase, to seek contact. The effort changes sides. Men who understand this stop chasing attention. They start to attract curiosity. And curiosity, in the game of attraction, is the most powerful force there is. What you don't fully understand, you want to discover. What you have already deciphered, you discard. That's why the nonchalant, even without saying much, dominates, because he doesn't give himself away like a product on the shelf. He lets himself be discovered like a rare mystery. And now, the most dangerous part. Effort doesn't just make you seem insecure. It unconsciously transforms you into someone less desirable, because you start acting in function of the other. And every man who loses his centrality loses attraction. The woman feels that you have orbited into her gravity, and at that moment, the game is over. She wins, and the desire dies. But the true master doesn't move for validation. He moves for pleasure, for instinct, for lightness. He doesn't try to conquer. He exists so fully that it becomes inevitable. And this is the first step for those who want to escape the cycle of silent rejections and enter the restricted circle of men who don't need to say, "Choose me." They just make you feel, You were lucky to find me. And it is precisely when you stop trying to prove something that your presence begins to speak for you. Most men believe that seduction begins with the right words, but true masters know it begins in silence. In the space between one answer and another. In the look that lingers half a second too long. In the sigh that explains nothing. And that is where the magic lies. You may have learned that a good communicator is one who knows how to talk. But in seduction, the most dangerous is the one who knows how to keep quiet. Because well-placed silence is not empty, it is provocation. It invites the other person to fill the gaps with imagination. And imagination, unlike words, has no limits. When you say something, it defines. When you are silent, it stimulates. Robert Greene called this the art of poeticizing presence. It is not about what you say, but what your presence leaves in the air after you leave. A nonchalant man does not strive to be interesting. He simply allows himself to be felt. And to do so, he relies on his own silence as a tool of power. He understands that sometimes the most seductive thing is what you fail to say. This awareness creates a subtle but devastating emotional tension. It's like a song that stops at the most intense moment, like a visual message that suggests without showing. Silence communicates, I'm in no hurry, and if you want to find out who I am, you'll have to earn it. This triggers curiosity, and curiosity, as we've seen, is the most powerful fuel for attraction. But be careful. This silence is not an absence of personality. It is a concentrated presence. The nonchalant doesn't say little because he's shy. He says little because he knows that each word must carry weight. He doesn't fill the gaps with anxiety. He observes, he listens, he reads signals. And then when he speaks, he hits. And when he's silent, he makes an impression. The woman who is with him feels that she is in front of someone who is not there to impress, but to impact. And that changes everything. Nietzsche said that he who has a why can bear any how. And the nonchalant is the one who carries such a strong why within himself that he doesn't need the how to prove himself. He doesn't need elaborate phrases or stories full of adjectives. He simply lives the moment with such presence that the woman feels something that few men can convey. Peace with intensity, presence with mystery, lightness with dominance. And this is confusing, because she is used to two types of men, the anxious one who talks too much and the arrogant one who imposes too much. But the nonchalant doesn't fit into either of them. He is the third way, the silent magnetic one, the one who observes more than he reacts, the one who listens with his eyes, the one who speaks with his body. And the body in this game is the most powerful voice there is, the confident gaze, the controlled breathing, the slight smile that doesn't give away, but insinuates, the deliberate slowness of the gestures. All of this communicates something that no words could. I'm here, but I don't need you to validate me. And when she feels this, something in her activates the instinct of conquest. She wants to break the code. She wants to understand what is behind that calm silence. And now, a subtle detail that few see. Silence creates a space where the woman feels safe to fill with her emotions. She opens up, expresses herself, talks more. And then the paradox occurs. She feels that you are an excellent communicator, even if you have spoken little. Because the best communicator is not the one who speaks well, but the one who makes the other feel heard. And that is exactly what the nonchalant does. He listens with disinterested interest. He pays attention without seeming needy. He creates an emotional space where she can exist without judgment. And this, in a world where everyone wants to impress, is extremely rare. That is why she says, with you, I can be myself. Not because he said something, but because he did not say what others always say. And here is the golden key. The silence that charms is the same one that protects. The man who talks too much gives away power. What is silent with intention preserves mystery. And mystery, as we have learned since the time of Cleopatra, is the greatest weapon of seduction. Because it transforms your every gesture into an enigma. And every enigma needs to be solved. She doesn't leave because she's bored. She leaves when she feels she has understood everything about you. Silence makes her never sure if she has understood enough. And in this invisible game, you become not only interesting, but unforgettable. And it is precisely when she believes she has understood you that the spell begins to fade. Because desire cannot survive the obvious. And here we come to one of the biggest mistakes modern men make: the desperate search for an immediate connection. They believe that if they open their hearts early, if they tell their pains, their achievements, and show themselves vulnerable right from the first date, they will create a deep emotional bond. But what they don't realize is that, by doing this too early, they are killing the mystery, and with it, the erotic tension that sustains the fascination. There is a huge difference between real connection and premature emotional exposure. The first arises over time, naturally. The second is an anxious attempt to be accepted, and as we have seen so far, anything that sounds like an attempt conveys insecurity. A woman does not want to hear your full story on the first date. She wants to feel that there is something behind what you show, something that she needs to deserve, discover, explore. And this only happens when you learn to measure what you reveal, when you understand the power of the unsaid. Robert Greene calls this a false sense of security. A good seducer lets the other person believe they understand you, while you reveal only the layers you choose. He controls the narrative with strategic silences, enigmatic pauses, and answers that leave room for interpretation. He doesn't lie, but he doesn't spill the beans either. He insinuates, suggests, and invites the imagination to work for him. And that's high-level seduction. The Forbidden Manual reinforces this tactic with the emotional mirror technique. You observe what the woman values, what she shows she desires, and reflect that subtly without copying it. You mold yourself as someone who shares that inner universe without saying it explicitly. And here a powerful phenomenon arises. She feels she's connecting deeply with you, but she can't explain why. And that's exactly what hooks her. Because when reason can't justify it, emotion takes over. And where there's unexplained emotion, there's obsession. That's why so many men who tell everything end up being forgotten. They give her the whole map before she feels like exploring the terrain. And when everything is on the table, the game is over. A woman needs layers. She needs spaces between certainties. She needs gaps that she herself can fill with assumptions. This is not manipulation. It is art. It is allowing her mind to participate in the process and not just passively receive your confessions. Nietzsche said that truth is a necessary illusion. And in seduction, this applies with surgical precision. You don't lie, but you don't give anything away either. You create an illusion of closeness while maintaining enough distance to remain enigmatic. You show small fragments of your depth, but you never reveal the depths of the pit. You share stories with open endings, reactions with double meanings, and emotions dosed with watchmaker precision. And here is the most counterintuitive point of all. The man who exposes himself too much, thinking he will connect, ends up creating discomfort. Because the human mind doesn't like to have everything resolved too soon. It needs complexity. It needs challenge. The strongest connection is not born of immediate transparency, but rather of the feeling that there is something more. That is why, when you master this skill of building connection with absence, of creating intimacy with empty spaces, you become an emotional architect, an engineer of fascination, an artist of non-explicit presence. And the woman in front of you will not be able to explain it, but she will feel that she needs to come back, because there is more to you than she has been able to decipher. And that more is what will keep her coming back.